Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya on Saturday morning. Today we'll be continuing with our series, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 30. Today will be verse 36. It will be a replay of class given by His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj. I will just play here. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 30. The activities of the Prachetas. Text 36. Yatra Narayana Sakshat Bhagavan Nyasinam Gati Samstuyate Sat Kataso Mukta Sangai Puna Puna Yatra Narayana Sakshat Bhagavan Yasinam Gati Samstuyate Satkataso Mukta Sangai Puna Puna Yatra Narayana Sakshat Bhagavan Yasinam Gati Samstuyate Satkataso Mukta Sangai Puna Puna Yatra Narayana Sakshat Bhagavan Yasinam Gati Samstuyate Satkataso Mukta Sangai Puna Puna Tra Where Narayana, Lord Narayan, Sakshat, directly, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nyasinam, of persons in the renounced order of life, Gati, the ultimate goal, Samstuyate, is worshipped, Satkataso, by discussing the transcendental vibration, Mukta Sangai, by those who are liberated from material contamination. Puna Puna, again and again. Translation. The Supreme Lord Narayan is present among devotees who are engaged in hearing and chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Narayan is the ultimate goal of sannyasis, those in the renounced order of life. And Narayan is worshipped through the Sankirtan movement by those who are liberated from material contamination. Indeed, They recite the holy name again and again. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The sannyasis are missing the real presence of Narayan. This is because they falsely claim to be Narayan himself. According to the customary etiquette of Mayavadi sannyasis, they address one another as Narayan. To say that everyone is a temple of Narayan is correct, but to accept another human being as Narayan is a great offense. The conception of derision Narayan, poor Narayan, an attempt to identify the poor with Narayan, is also a great offense. Even to identify Narayan with demigods like Ma and Lord Shiva is an offense. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahmarudradi Daivatai Samatve Naiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhave Dhruvam. Which means one who considers Lord Narayan on a level with great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva is immediately listed among non-believers. Unquote. The fact is that by performing Sankirtan Yajna, one can immediately please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then Narayan himself descends and immediately is present. In this age of Kali, Narayan is immediately present in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Concerning Lord Chaitanya, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32 states, Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Yajanti Hi Sumedha Sa. Which means, in the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Unquote. After all, human life is meant for pleasing Narayan, and this can easily be done by performing Sankirtan Yajna. Wherever there's congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord, Gora Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his incarnation as Lord Chaitanya, immediately appears and is worshipped by Sankirtan Yajna. In this verse it is said that Narayan is Nyasinam Gati, the ultimate goal of the sannyasis. The goal of those who have renounced the material world is the attainment of Narayan. A Vaishnava sannyasi therefore dedicates his life to serving Narayan. He does not falsely claim to be Narayan. Instead of becoming nirvaira, non-envious of other living entities, one who tries to become Narayan becomes envious of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the attempt to become Narayan constitutes the greatest offense. Actually, when one chants or discusses the transcendental activities of the Lord, he immediately becomes non-envious. In this material world, everyone is envious of everyone else. But by vibrating or discussing the holy name of the Lord, one becomes non-envious and devoid of material hankering. Because of our envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we've become envious of all other living entities. When we are no longer envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be real peace, unity, and fraternity in human society. Without Narayan or Sankirtan Yajna, there cannot be peace in this material world. Narayana Sakshad, Bhagavan Nyasinam Gati, Samstuyate Satkata Su, Mukta Sangai, Puna Puna. The Supreme Lord Narayan is present among devotees who are engaged in hearing and chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Narayan is the ultimate goal of sannyasis, those in the renounced order of life. And Narayan is worshipped through the Sankirtan movement by those who are liberated from material contamination. Indeed, they recite the holy name again and again. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yes, this is a very beautiful verse, very profound, very instructive, and extremely relishable. Prabhupada, in a fairly substantial part of the purport, is focusing on this point of how the Mayavadis and those influenced by them, they're also Mayavadis, but they're not like sort of official card-carrying Mayavadis. But the Mayavadis, they have a slogan which is very dear to them, and they repeat it regularly, and when they meet and greet each other, they say it to each other as a token of recognition and respect. Namo Narayanaya. I offer my obeisances to Narayan. Narayanaya. To Narayan. But they are offering their respects to that other Mayavadi sannyasi or whoever it may be. But they're addressing them. I'm offering my obeisances to you, Narayan, but you are not Narayan. Listeners they're addressing is not Narayan, has never been, will never be, and in fact, at best, is a long, long way from possibly being considered as a candidate to be Lord Narayan. Hopelessly far away. It is just too much altogether. But really, it's just a very wonderful, very remarkable manifestation of the influence, on one hand, of the power, the deluding, the mode of ignorance and the modes of material nature in general, and the amazing capacity of the conditioned soul to become bewildered, and particularly to become bewildered in the sense of attributing more value to himself than he deserves. Here, Srila Prabhupada quotes a well-known verse, Yastu Narayanam Devam, that person who considers Narayan to be on the level of Deva, Devam, Brahma, Rudradi, Daivatai, Brahma, Rudra, Adi. One who considers Narayan to be on the level of demigods, beginning with, but not limited to, but just beginning with Brahma and Shiva, then Sa Pashandi Bhaved Dhruvam. Such a person is Pandi, which really means just like a terrible offender. Not like an innocent, foolish offender, but really someone who's really envious and really wants to express some unpleasant feelings towards the other person. Pashandi. It's really a very strong term. So, yes, but this is going on. This is going on. As is said, and Srila Prabhupada said on many occasions, that the last of Maya is to think that you are God. And to think that you are God, it really generally only happens, at least very much mainly, in the society of people who have some interest in spiritual life in one way or another. Generally just the materialistic people as such, they're more just, they don't care about God, and they're more that either he doesn't exist or he's just there to gratify my senses. But those who are engaged in one way or another in some type of spiritual life, or what is meant to be some sort of spiritual life, then the last trick of the material energy is to somehow or other just fool them into thinking that, oh yes, it's me, I'm God. I remember many years ago, well, just when I joined, a matter of weeks afterwards, we were listening to a class of Srila Prabhupada's, and Srila Prabhupada was talking about the Ashtanga yogis and those types of people who try to realize the supersoul. And eventually they may do that. They may actually realize the supersoul, and this is really, in a certain sense, it's advanced. It's quite advanced. But Prabhupada in that class was saying, so those Ashtanga yogis and people like that, they may actually realize the supersoul, but then the last snare of Maya, they think, it's me. Shishi Krishna Balaram Shishi Radha Sham Sundar Shishi Gaunitai Ki Jaya. Yes, they think, oh, it's me. How nice, I've realized myself. But it's the last snare of Maya. They were making a certain type of progress. But at that late stage, they really tripped and fell very badly. So if even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva and other demigods, if even they are a long way from being on the level of Lord Narayan or being possibly to be addressed as Lord Narayan, then what about ourselves, the just residents of Kali Yuga and deeply conditioned by Kali Yuga? In Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the 10th chapter, Lord Krishna, after describing his different manifestations or manifestations of his different energies, Lord Krishna makes the point that what are all these beautiful and wondrous creations? From just all these things, they arise from just a spark of my splendor. With a single fragment of myself, I maintain and sustain the entire material realm. And not even just this universe, but actually the entire material sphere. Just a tiny fragment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But someone who is deeply under the influence and actually the control of the modes of material nature is now thinking that he is Narayan. So this, of course, is really about as foolish as one could get. It's a very terrible mistake. But this is the position of these Mayavadis. Therefore it said, Mayavadi aparadi. And Lord Chaitanya said, Mayavadi bhashya shunale haya sarva nasha. Anyone who hears the Mayavadi bhash, their talk, their explanations and commentaries like that, then sarva, haya sarva nash. For that person, everything is destroyed. Everything is destroyed. So it's very unfortunate, but this material world is a place of misfortune and a place for the unfortunate. And this is what is going on. So, the sannyasis, nyasinam gati. There are different types of sannyasis, of course. But ultimately, the real sannyasis, or the best of the sannyasis, are the Vaishnava sannyasis, or for that matter, any really sincere and dedicated devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For them, Lord Narayan, not like some figment of their imagination that I'm Lord Narayan, but they worship Lord Narayan. They dedicate their lives to Lord Narayan and ultimately to Lord Krishna. And in this way, they become truly delivered. And they actually achieve the goal of life, getting out of this material world, developing their dormant, forgotten relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in the meantime, relishing the nectar and more nectar of the Sankirtan Yajna, chanting the Lord's holy names, distributing the chanting of the Lord's holy names, talking about Krishna, telling people about Krishna, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, which is a very special way of giving people Krishna Katha. So delivering the people, delivering themselves, and becoming very, very happy in the meantime. Actually, it's very ironic that the Mayavadis and people like them, that they can accept this idea somehow or other. Their intelligence is able to agree and accept, yes, that I am Narayan. It is a case of mistaken identity. It is a mistake of impersonation in a very extreme, very, very extreme degree. Just like if you meet someone or somehow or other, someone is trying to impersonate you and go around and sort of take advantage of your facilities by impersonating you, or maybe someone like the president or a police officer, something like that. Just recently, I was staying in a devotee's place in South Africa, and he was saying that some months before, a whole gang of thieves dressed up as members of the South African police force came in a big vehicle marked as a South African police vehicle, came to this exclusive, gated, highly security protected residential estate, came to the door and said, to the gates and said, "We're the police. Someone called us. We got to go in." Went racing in without identifying themselves or anything. Banged on the people's door, got allowed in, and held the people up and stole everything. Put it in the big vehicle along with the people, and then so the people couldn't raise the alert, and then drove out. So you see, this is impersonation. And it's not very nice. It's really not very nice. So it's a great insult to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a great offense. And it's really just, it's terrible. And as a result, those people, Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, they cannot become nirvaira. They cannot become non-envious. They're envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, impersonating him. So they cannot become non-envious, but those who actually dedicate themselves as devotees at the lotus feet of Lord Narayan, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they actually become non-envious. As Lord Shiva told Durga in the 6th canto, Narayana parasarve na kutaschana bibhiti swarga pavarga narakeshu apitulyarta darshana. Just see these devotees of Lord Narayan. They're on such a level, their hearts are so purified, and they're so free from personal consideration and anything of that sort, that for them, Swarga, heavenly planets, Apavarga, liberation, Naraka, hell, doesn't make any difference to them. Doesn't make any difference. They'll just accept. If they take it, if they understand this is the will of the Lord, then they will accept any situation. be it materially good or bad, or even just material or spiritual. They'll accept if they understand it's the will of the Lord. Lord Shiva, of course, spoke that verse to Durga just after Durga had cursed Maharaj Chitraketu. Probably you're all familiar with that. The narration there in the 6th canto, very amazing story. Chitraketu was flying around the universe in some very special airship. He flew past Mount Kailash, and who should he see sitting down there, surrounded by sannyasis? But Lord Shiva. And of course, if it was as simple as that, it would have just been very nice. But there was a complication, was that Parvati, Durga, wife of Lord Shiva, was sitting on his lap while he was instructing this group of great renunciates and very spiritually advanced sannyasis. So Chitraketu laughed. And Durga saw that, and Durga cursed him, become a demon, and he became Vritrasura. So that's very amazing narration. I remember when that volume of the 6th canto came out, on that very day, I was arrested distributing books on Abbey Street in London. Anyway, it's like a shopping street off the main street. I was arrested on a Friday evening, and they locked me up till Monday. So I had to stay in the cells. They took my neck beads and my Brahmin thread and my japa beads because they were afraid I might hang myself. I told them, it's okay, don't worry. We don't take it that seriously. But anyway, they took those things and held me for the 3 nights. But the devotees brought me that book. It had just arrived in the temple that day. So I read the whole thing a couple of times, and I took it as Krishna's mercy. Because normally we're very busy doing this and that. So what a story. Vritrasura. Sure, that's amazing. Who is Chitraketu? And he becomes Vritrasura right there, or that whole pastime. So when he was cursed there, our acharyas explain that Parvati, Durga, she reacted very strongly. It's understandable in a certain sense, because Lord Shiva is her husband, and she's well aware he's an extremely great personality, and that even if he is sitting there in front of a group of great renunciates, that he's sitting there with his wife on his lap, even though if he were just some ordinary mist, it would be kind of stupid, and it would be laughable. But Lord Shiva, he's such an exalted, extremely exalted and wonderful, elevated personality, that there's nothing wrong with it for him. Nothing wrong with it. And none of those sannyasis complained. None of them left thinking this is inappropriate or something like that, they were listening very attentively to Lord Shiva. So it's understandable in a certain sense that she would become very angry and feel it was appropriate and the right thing to punish the offender who would laugh at Lord Shiva like he's just some sort of stupid, materialistic person. But explanations are given there that there are different possibilities. A, Chitraketu might have laughed. It's not necessarily simply that he thought, look at Lord Shiva sitting there, and laughed in that sense, looking down on Lord Shiva. But one suggestion is made that maybe Chitraketu, who of course himself was very, very great devotee, maybe Chitraketu was thinking, possibly, that look at this situation. Lord Shiva with his wife on his lap and all these sannyasis, maybe thought, if the materialistic people saw this, they would become bewildered. And so maybe he was laughing, thinking how stupid the conditioned souls are, that they might laugh at this or, misconstrue this in some, offensive way, stupid way. So maybe he laughed for that reason. And a few other possible reasons are suggested why he might have laughed. And of course, it's fairly clear that, it's extremely unlikely for an elevated devotee like him to just sort of mock another exalted devotee, particularly Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, Lord Shiva, who is so special amongst the devotees. Anyway, that was the background. So Durga pronounced this curse, you become a demon. And Chitraketu, then, he didn't appeal, please be merciful, it was a mistake, or I didn't mean it, or try to explain it, or anything of that sort. He just accepted it. He just accepted it. And then he left. And then Lord Shiva spoke that verse, Narayana Para Sarve. Just see the devotees of Lord Narayan. So non-envious, so humble, and so much seeing that whatever happens in my life, it's just the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's all it is. So I shouldn't protest or whatever. Just take it. Yes, so this is the case. This is the case with the devotees. Whereas the Mayavadi sannyasis and so many others, people influenced by Mayavad, they may think we're all Narayan, Namo Narayanaya. I offer my obeisances to you who are Narayan. But at the same time, they expect to be offered respect in the same way. You are Narayan, so I'm respecting you, and so am I. Now you should repeat the same thing. So it's terribly envious. And it's just such crazy type of consciousness, actually. So such people, how can they be hearted, non-envious, and so extremely humble and able to accept whatever comes as the mercy of the Lord and not try to sidestep it or anything of that sort? A similar case is there with Maharaj Parikshit in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was cursed by Shringi, but he was not aware that he had been cursed. He went back to the palace and he was carrying on with his duties. But then Shamika, of that Shringi, he came to Maharaj Parikshit and told him, "I'm very sorry to say my son has cursed you, even though he's very unqualified, but still the curse will have effect. You will die within 7 days by the bite of a snake bird." So Shamika offered Maharaj Parikshit, "I'll remove the curse because it was wrong and he's unqualified. It shouldn't have happened. It's not right. So let me just remove the curse and you carry on and life will go on." But Maharaj Parikshit requested him, "No, please don't remove the curse. Leave the curse. I accept it. I will die in 7 days by the bite of a snake bird." So this is because he accepts it as the will of the Lord. He has that humility, that Krishna consciousness, vision of Krishna everywhere and within his own life. He has that faith in the Lord, and he himself is completely fearless. Let anything happen on the material level, it doesn't matter. If it happens, it happens by the will of the Lord, and that's good for me. So he refused the offer of Shamika Rishi to remove the curse. This is the consciousness of the very elevated devotees. Let me close perhaps by telling you a story in this regard. It's interesting. There was a king in sort of Vedic India. There was a king, and he was a bit of a devotee, something, not too much, but he was a bit of a devotee. Depended which way the wind was blowing, but he was sort of on and off. But he had a minister who was really a great devotee, very, very sincere, sold-out devotee. So they were in the forest one time. The king was hunting. The king slipped, and the arrow, he was aiming his arrow at something. He slipped. The arrow jumped and cut off the top of his thumb. Hare Krishna. And he lost like the top quarter of an inch or whatever of his thumb. And he was looking at this and saying, "Look at that. This is terrible. What happened? Oh no." And the minister said, "It was Krishna's mercy." And the king said, "What do you mean, Krishna's mercy? Look at this. I lost part of my thumb. It's terrible." And the minister said, "No, it was Krishna's mercy." And the king got really angry. "I lost part of my thumb, and you say it's Krishna's mercy? you're a nonsense. And he had his soldiers arrest the minister and throw him in jail. So the minister is now in jail. Some days later, the king went out hunting again, without the minister, of course, and he got lost in the jungle. And he got arrested by some aborigines, kind of wild people. And they told him, wonderful, we're so happy that we caught you. We will offer you as a human sacrifice to Mother Kali. That's wonderful. We're very happy. So the king, of course, was very unhappy, really disturbed. So they're preparing him to be the human sacrifice. The priest was inspecting the king's body, and he noticed, look at that. Part of his thumb is missing. His body is not whole. We cannot offer him as a human sacrifice. It would be Kali Aparad. So we cannot offer him. They let him go. Now the king's walking home, and he was thinking, wow, it really was Krishna's mercy. Didn't understand it. And I had the minister arrested. Oh no, what an offender I am. So he went back and released the minister and apologized and said, you know, you were right. It really was Krishna's mercy. I'm so sorry I locked you up. And you know what the minister said? He said, no, you locked me up. It was Krishna's mercy. And the king said, no, it wasn't Krishna's mercy. It was my nonsense. And the minister said, no, it was Krishna's mercy. I'll explain why. The minister said, if I was not locked up in jail, I would have been with you in the forest. I was arrested with you. And they would not have offered you, of course, as a human sacrifice because your body's not whole. But my body is whole. They would have sacrificed me to Kali. So it was Krishna's mercy. Anyway, it's just a little story. But so these great devotees, they're on very exalted platforms of consciousness. And they can accept everything as Krishna's mercy and be unaffected. The time of death comes, no problem. In any way, no problem. They lose everything, no problem. They get everything, no problem. Because they're really sheltered by the Lord and they feel that shelter. That just, it's like all-consuming shelter. All-consuming shelter of the Lord. And feeling it so vividly and strongly, they feel, let's give it to others. They glorify the Lord. They glorify his shelter. They chant his holy names. And they give that to everyone else. Understanding there's nothing else which can help at all. Political change, forget it. Forget it. You know, it can just be from the frying pan into the fire. You know, financial improvement, win the lottery. Oh, just doesn't help. I was also reading, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, a man in America won like $140 million in the lottery. He got so much money, gave up working, bought a big mansion, and then because he was lower natured, he started drinking too much. and he got into the wrong company and just messed his life up terribly. And then he killed someone in a drunken fight, and then he was executed. And what I read was his wife was saying, on the day of his execution, his wife was saying, I wish he hadn't won that money. We were better off when he was working in the factory. So these things cannot help at all. In fact, generally, they make things worse. And at best, they can't help in any substantial way. So the advanced devotees realize this. And to whatever degree a devotee is advanced, the devotee realizes this and develops that desire, how to help the others, how to help change the world for the better by giving everyone the same shelter, the same opportunity for shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. Oh, thank you. I paid him 10 rupees to do that. Good trick. Haribol. Okay, that's all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That was a wonderful class by His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj. Before we get there, I just wanted to read out about Maharaj. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj, he was born on August 14th, 1951 in Auckland, New Zealand. His first contact with Krishna consciousness was while at university in Auckland, where on the university grounds, he saw devotees throwing flowers at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, while Srila Prabhupada was walking. In 1972, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami left New Zealand to make an extensive world tour and met ISKCON devotees in London and later joined Srila Prabhupada's International Society for Krishna Consciousness. After taking initiation, from Srila Prabhupada, he became involved in public relations and book publications for the Bhaktivedanta Manor, ISKCON British headquarters. In 1980, he went to South Africa to oversee ISKCON's activities as temple president at Catteridge and to help with the overseeing of the construction of the Sri Sri Radhanath temple project. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj is closely associated with the educational programs of ISKCON and teaches courses at the Vaishnava Institute for Higher Education in Vrindavana. In 1994, during the Gaura Purnima festival, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj took to the renounced order of sannyasa. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj has continued to travel extensively, preaching the message of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. It's a wonderful class again. It was a really wonderful class. Few things. How very nicely Maharaj brought this particular thing about how the Mayavadis are envious and serious offenders, and he beautifully compared with how the devotees in situations take everything as a mercy of the Lord, and they're not envious. Rather, the Mayavadis are very envious. And he talks about a couple of stories which he compares this with the Chitraketu, and also with the other one where Maharaja Parikshit, who could have very well undone the curse, but they took it as the will of the Lord, and that was really amazing. And Maharaj himself was talking about how he was jailed when the sixth cantor came in, and he used this as an opportunity to read the books in the jail. That's amazing. It's really amazing how he himself has demonstrated it. And he also talks everywhere about how the devotees are exalted and they're in a high state of Krishna consciousness, and they desire to help others by actually giving them opportunity to understand the Supreme Lord. I would just stop here. I would just want to hear any other realization, comments. I'll open the lines. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I think we are not unable to mute actually. Just trying to do that, Prabhuji.
How we change it? Okay.
Yes, Prabhu, we can unmute. Prabhu, even the example of the mercy of the Krishna, that was very nice, the king and the minister.
Yes, Mataji. Very, very amazing story of how, I mean, how we never understand the real, hand of Lord. What is His will, or what is He trying to do? Yeah, that's really amazing.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I think one aspect which was really with a simple example that he explained is, the aparad of considering all as Narayan, and he equated with, he gave an example of impersonation, right? How if somebody impersonates a government official and goes around and cheats people, right? So if that would be, if that is offensive, and how offensive it is to impersonate the Supreme Lord as Lord. So that was, I think, a very beautiful example, which I liked. And also the other one is seeing the hands of Lord Krishna and accepting as mercy of the Lord from the sixth canto. That was very beautiful example, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. I think he talked of the case of the mistaken identity, and then worse situation is more like an impersonation. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Another pranams. Prabhuji, this is yesterday Maharaj was Bhakti Parivrajka Maharaj was telling about Ajamila. He was chanting with Nama Bhas, no Nama Prad. But then I was thinking, how much he was engaged, that leads to, when someone is engaged in a lot of chanting or activities, then there is a chance for aparadh. But then how much Jamila was involved in activities, that is not clear. Then, but he could avoid. So I'm saying if he was not engaged in more activities, then there was no chance for aparadh. Then but that doesn't mean that we can stop from engagement. We have to engage in a lot of services and giving up scope for more aparadh. So which should be done? If we don't serve, that is not correct. But if you serve, there is a chance of aparadh. Then so that is how Ajamila did, I think. That's my understanding. Anybody can clarify, please.
Prabhu, if I remember, Maharaj was telling he has done sins, but he has not done aparadha. That was he was emphasizing on that part.
Yeah, that is what that part I understood, Matri, but there was no scope for him to do aparadh because of not much engagement. That's what my question is. Is that so, or how to understand this? See, more if when you do more seva and get engaged with mix with a lot of devotees, there is a chance for aparadh. Some in our interaction, sometimes these things happen, and but for those who don't engage, there is no scope for there is very little chance of aparadh.
Yes, yes.
In that case, did Ajamila not get into too much of service or positive chanting that he did not get a chance to do aparadh, or how to understand this?
Anybody would like to comment on that?
Maybe tomorrow we can ask him the question.
Yeah, we can certainly ask him. But
Yes.
actually, Prabhu, he also talked about different kinds of, in different levels. I mean, when you can be in ignorance and still, manage. He gave a few of the examples of three kinds where you could still, be in an Amabad stage. And he was giving certain clarifications of that. So maybe, I mean, as Mataji put it, we can ask a question to him tomorrow.
And in the Namabhasa stage only, he was telling different types.
Three types, three or four? Three, I think.
Somehow I didn't catch, I didn't understand. Maybe tomorrow we can ask him that question. Prabhu, you being in the temple, you can ask. We are on the Zoom, we cannot ask Prabhu. Please note down and you ask him.
Yes, Mataji, I will try. If I'm there, I will definitely ask.
Yes. Any other comments on today's class or any realization? Tomorrow we'll be having our class from 8:30 in the morning, live from temple. Please join us. And thank you for joining us today. His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantapuri Vaishnava ki jai. Panchakalpatarubhascha Kripasindhabhya Evasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo. Anantapuri Vaishnava ki jai. Jai.